Hey, how you doing? It's your boy BrogiNaric back again with another review. This time we'll be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn. This is the latest movie in the MCU, Phase 5. And this will be a spoiler review, but I'm going to get into spoilers later. I'm going to try to keep it non-spoiler for a little bit. This was one of the most anticipated movies I had of the year. And I have to say, James Gunn did not disappoint. That man did not disappoint. He went out with a bang. This is his last, as far as we know, at least for a while, this will be his last Marvel movie. And he wrapped up this chapter of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. The MCU sort of vibe has been a little off. You know, some people have not been as into the Phase 4 as they were with previous phases. And the start of Phase 5 of Quantumania, Ant-Man was not the best thing, and then this movie comes out, it reinvigorates things. It's like, okay, this is more like what people have been wanting, and I didn't hate most of Phase 4, but there's something about this movie, and not just because it's characters that we know from the previous phases, but it's something about just the direction that James Gunn brings to this movie and the vibe that he brings is going to be missed. It's going to be sorely missed. Guardians have always been the edgier Marvel movies, and I think this one is definitely the most edgy of them in terms of the subject matter, certain jokes, certain language used, even some of the visuals. To a degree, it feels like those PG movies from the 80s that were really PG-13. It feels closer to that vibe, that more serious vibe, sort of like what we got with Winter Soldier. I guess to a degree, parts of Black Panther. That seriousness needs to be brought back to the MCU, because I think that was one of the things with Ant-Man. You wanted something serious with King, but then everything else was fucking ridiculous, as opposed to this movie where it's serious and ridiculous, and it kind of all meshes way better. The synopsis of this movie is the team is still struggling after the events of Endgame. Peter is a wreck because he misses Gamora. The team is like together, but it's kind of like they're barely holding together. And then out of nowhere, this golden guy comes in, starts wrecking shit, and Rocket gets hurt. And then the rest of the story is the team struggling to try to save Rocket because he's on death's door. And they come across this guy called the High Evolutionary, who is basically the guy that created Rocket, who's been searching for Rocket all this time because there's something special about Rocket that he needs. And it's the team trying to save their friend's life, but then also getting rid of this crazy madman causing terror throughout the galaxy. Okay, the pros, the entire cast, everybody in this brings it, but the outliers are Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, the voice of Rocket Raccoon. I'm gonna give it to Sean Gunn as well, because he does the motion capture. Now, the guy that plays the High Evolutionary, the main villain in this movie, I don't know how to say his name. He was Murns in Peacemaker. He was great. He is definitely one of the top 5 villains, if not top 6 villains in the MCU. He brought it in this role. He did a phenomenal job as the High Evolutionary. The great use of practical and CGI effects, which is something I've noticed with James Gunn in his films. He does a great job with effects. I knew when I first saw the first movie of his I ever saw was Super, and that was a very low budget movie, but the special effects somehow were very good in that movie. And when he did the first Guardians, I don't know what it is about him and his movies. Maybe it's just he has a special eye, or maybe he uses a slightly different animation studios, or he suggests different animation studios, but his effects always look good in the MCU, and they look good in the Suicide Squad as well, and in the Peacemaker TV show. The movie is funny, like really funny. Like, people complain about Marvel being jokey, but for some reason with this movie, the interactions and the jokes are just so well written. The characters, the actors portray these jokes so very well, and even to a point when the jokes get annoying, we see the characters actually acknowledge that, hey, these fucking jokes are getting annoying. Why are you being such an idiot right now? Like, it all works. Like, there's a lot of tension between everyone. They're getting stressed out, and it all plays into the story. And then there's also moments where these characters get to redeem themselves and bring certain somewhat closures to their arcs. Not completely, closing it, but like giving them good moments to stand out. The sets and the costuming is amazing. You can tell when someone has used actual sets for the most part, as opposed to the volume. Which I don't know if the volume was, I'm assuming the volume was used, is that CG, it's the big thing that they use for like Mandalorian. They used it in Thor: Love and Thunder, and it didn't look that good. They used it in Quantumania, it didn't look that good. But then you can have a movie like The Batman, where the use of it is limited, and it works. I don't know if Gunn used it in this. If he did, it looked good, but there was also a lot of practical sets that they were on, and it worked. It looked tangible, it looked good. A lot of people saying this is a very emotional movie, and it is. The James Gunn is definitely tugging at your heartstrings. It is not just the Rocket Raccoon backstory, but that is definitely the main focuses. A lot of flashbacks on Rocket's backstory, which are uplifting but also sad at the same time. The soundtrack is really fucking good. Like, it's a solid soundtrack, and he hasn't messed with any of the soundtracks, and this one is another solid soundtrack. Even though Peter has more songs from different eras, it still all feels like Guardians. It still got that Guardians music feel. Like, he didn't go too crazy with the music selection. So with all that being said, if I would grade this film, I would give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 an A 10 out of 10. Solid film, definitely another top tier MCU flick. And it seems like, a lot of people have been down on superhero movies, the fatigue, but after what, 2 months, we had Quantumania and Shazam 2. All of a sudden, it seems like superhero fatigue is gone because fucking, Guardians of the Galaxy is killing it. Black Panther did great too. It is weird, like people tend to forget that Wakanda Forever came out. That movie didn't bomb and it won an Oscar. So I don't know what this fatigue people be acting like they got or whatever. But yeah, this is a solid film. Go check it out. That's all I have to say for non-spoilers. Now I'm gonna get into spoilers. So I'm gonna get into spoilers. I'm not gonna talk about everything that happens, but I got some notes to kind of remind me. The movie's like an hour and a half long, but there's a lot that goes. It flows well, but there is a lot of things that happens. But it very much meshes all that well together. I'm gonna start with Rocket. So Rocket Raccoon, he always mentions how he's not a raccoon. He was tortured by someone that didn't like things the way they were and was, never satisfied. He's been through a lot, and we actually see his story. Just the cutest baby raccoon that was experimented on and given cybernetics and all this stuff to make him into somewhat like a humanoidish animal. And we see how smart Rocket Raccoon is. Rocket is super smart, very crafty, and he hangs out with these other animals, humanoid animals. There was Matisse, which was like a walrus. They're like horrific but cute at the same time. This is walrus with like wheelchair wheels for legs. There's the otter called Lila, who's like an otter with like elongated robot arms. And then there's a fucking funny mechanical spider looking thing called Floor, right? Yeah, that was his name, was Floor. They come up with their names. His name is Floor, there's Lila, there's Tease, and then Rocket becomes Rocket. Because he's obsessed with rockets, he wants to fly. The High Evolutionary created them. They were experiments to build to the perfect humanoids that he wants to create. He created this thing called Counter Earth, which is basically a mock-up of Earth because he wants to create the perfect planet. And he feels like Earth is a good model. Animals want to go there, but then it turns out that like, no, he doesn't deem them worthy enough to go there because they're inferior creatures. He's gonna kill them all, but he needs Rocket's genius because Rocket was able to figure out the problem in High Evolutionary's plan. He was basically trying to create his own animal humanoid creatures, but he couldn't quite get the formula. Rocket is so smart, he figured it out. And High Evolutionary is like jealous because he's like low-key jealous because he's like, how did this being that's supposed to be inferior to me was able to quickly figure out this problem that I could not figure out? You shouldn't be that good. Why are you that good? But he wants to get rid of the others and take Rocket's brain. Rocket tries to escape, and it does not go that well because the High Evolutionary pops up and just ends up, he kills the otter. Rocket tries to fight him, but in the fight, the others get shot up. And then Rocket, that's like when Rocket like snaps, claws out the dude's face, and then escapes. And then from that point on, he's been on his own. And that was a very emotional backstory because throughout the whole time, Rocket is on the table trying to be resuscitated while the team is sticking around trying to save him. And he's having these flashbacks to his backstory. Goddamn, that was some emotional stuff right there. And they did a great job building that up. You get to see the villain be a villain. You get to see this character interact with these new characters, and you really get connected to them. And it didn't feel ham-fisted. It didn't feel too rushed. Like they really let that backstory grow. And I like now that Rocket is going to be the new leader of the team, which I thought was a great choice. Because, I mean, he was essentially the leader during the 5 years everybody was, had been snapped away. So it makes sense that he would take over. And I also like that whole bit where he's like, wait, everybody's leaving? Like, I like how he's grown close with the family. He doesn't want to see the family end. Family's not ending, but it's like certain people are just kind of breaking away to do their own thing. Newer people are going to come back, and it's going to be interesting to see who's going to take over this franchise. I do think we're going to get maybe at least one more Guardians movie. I don't know if we're going to get anything after that, but I could definitely see at least one more Guardians movie coming up. Now, the High Evolutionary, once again played by the actor, I can't pronounce his name, but goddamn, he killed it. I remember they first announced High Evolutionary is gonna be the villain, and he's played by the dude from Peacemaker. I'm like, well, I like the actor. I don't really know much about the character, and then looking him up, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy sucks. Like, this is a lame villain. No one gives a shit about the High Evolutionary. But I gotta say, James Gunn did a great job with this character. He's essentially Hitler. You know, he's a eugenicist. He's a supremacist, but he's like super smart. But like anything he deems inferior, he gets rid of it. He does not acknowledge it. He doesn't take it seriously, and he eliminates it. He gets it out of it. That's what he wanted to do with Rocket and his friends and the other animals, and then his humanoid people. It was good, but it wasn't good enough. And we also find out that he created what they call the Sovereign, the Gold people from the second movie. The leader, Aaliyah, I think is her name, Aaliyah or Alicia. She created Adam Warlock. You know, she's trying to get into the High Evolutionary's good graces because they feel themselves to be superior, even though High Evolutionary doesn't really think they're all that great either. But he lets them live. But he also was like, I might kill them.
This is a sick Negro.
The counter Earth with the animal people was really good, and I like how they explained the reason why it looks like Earth, because he went to Earth and he thought it was cool, but he wanted to make it better. Problem is, even though he created these beings with free will, it's not perfect. No matter what you do, people are gonna have issues. You see the nuclear families. It felt like it was like the 70s or the 80s on this planet, but just everyone is like an animal person. And it was fucking hilarious. I gotta say, one of the wildest things I did not expect to see in this movie, and I'm glad they acknowledged it, was when they were driving through the town to go to the High Evolutionary's base on the planet. We see an octopus man, a big octopus man, selling drugs to some cockroach kids. Apparently it was meth, because Star-Lord, he asked the High Evolutionary, if this is supposed to be so good and so like a utopia, why is there an octopus selling meth to some cockroaches? And I'm like, okay, so that's what that was. Okay, so that was just a random visual. It actually happened and it was acknowledged. And I like how the High Evolutionary is like, yeah, you know, that's not what a good society should be. So I'm gonna fucking destroy the planet. And some people are having this conversation where they're like, he's better than Kang. And I would gotta say, he is better than Kang. As an actual character, I don't think this actor is necessarily a better actor than Jonathan Majors. But in terms of how this character was presented and what he did in this movie, yes, he's portrayed as a better villain than Kang. Kang was good in Quantumania, but then there's a certain moment where, you know, he gets taken out by ants and he dies or whatever the fuck happened. And it kind of felt like, what are we doing here? Like, why is he getting his ass kicked by Ant-Man of all people? In this one, with Kang, he's talked about as like, oh, he's a conqueror. He did this, he did that. He destroyed this, he took over that. We never really see it. It's just already happened. And there's a difference between hearing about someone being a badass and then actually see this person do terrible things and be menacing, and it sticks with you more. We see the High Evolutionary kill the cute creatures that we got close to. We see the High Evolutionary blow up a planet. It's not like it was a planet of innocent people. The entire Earth just blows up. No one was saved. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we blew up the planet and, oh, we secretly saved the... No, they're dead. He just literally destroyed the entire planet. That's how evil this guy is. And he backs it up with his skills and what he does. And it's like, holy shit, this guy is crazy. And the whole thing where he's low-key jealous, not low-key, he's high-key jealous of Rocket Raccoon, because he's like, he created these new creatures, these kids, and they're like the next level of superiority that he's created. And they're very smart. The problem is, all of their genius is programmed. To a degree, he's like, I'm a god, but I can't give people essentially free will is what he's trying to do. He's like, I can create the body, I can create the mind, I can program them to be smart, but they don't have the ingenuity to be smart on their own. And that's what he needs out of Rocket, because Rocket was the one thing he created that had a super intellect that could create on its own. So that's why he wanted Rocket's brain. And apparently he's been looking for Rocket this whole time, he just couldn't find him. That's kind of like a bit of a plot hole, because like the second movie, you know, the Golden people knew where Rocket was. So I guess that didn't come into play. And then I guess the Thanos thing happened, so that threw everything. I don't know, but anyway. He had time to find him, but apparently now is the time when he needs him. But anyway, the whole reveal, the reason why his face looks like it's stapled or hanged on is because it's a face mask, and his face got really fucked up when Rocket Raccoon scratched his face out, and like he's like missing his nose, his lips, got like one eye, and all. Like it looked crazy. It looked like Skeletor. And I like when we see that in the movie, they pause on it and they don't shy away from it. Like it is gritty, and I like that little edge of grit that this film had. It's fucking great. Speaking of edge, Zoe Saldana as Gamora. I love the new / old Gamora. This version of Gamora where she's edgy. She's like, look, whatever relationship you had with this other version of me, that's not me. I don't really know you like that. I'm not even trying to get to know you like that. Like, I'm just here to get this money because Nebula, paid her to come in and help them go save Rocket. And I really dig it. I like the edge. I like the aggressiveness, the badassness of it. Because by the time we meet Gamora in the first Guardians, she's already gotten out of that stage. Like we hear that she used to be a badass, but we don't really see it. But in this one, we really see that edge and that badassness, and I really dug it. She's like moved on. She's with the Ravagers, the biker gang that Yondu was kind of a part of. She's now with them and Stallone and the others. And I like that she has her own thing and she gets to be, a scoundrel again. That was a funny joke early on where Peter is trying to get her to remember certain things, and she's like, and it's very schmaltzy, it's very cringe, it's very awkward, and Star-Lord has to realize, like, okay, this is not gonna work, she's not into me, and I'm not gonna keep pushing this to be a thing, because it's not gonna happen. And I like that they left it at that. Peter accepts, like, hey, that was a past life, it's not gonna happen, she's gonna do her own thing, and they do have a little bit of chemistry towards the end, but it's still ultimately like, no, we're different people now, so we're gonna do different things. But I really dig the new Gamora. Chris Pratt doesn't deserve as much hate as he's been getting. I've seen this movie, I've seen Super Mario Brothers movie. He's doing good work. I don't know, I guess it's something about him being very religious or whatever, that he went to a church that I guess didn't like gays, but he himself didn't say he hated gay people, but he's got that stigma with him now. We got to ease up on Chris Pratt. The man he's doing good work. He's not really bothering anybody. There's far worse celebrities who have said and have done horrible things. At this point in time, Chris Pratt ain't one of them, so I don't know why all of this hatred is going to him. We're expecting him to be bad or be terrible, and he's not. He's doing good work. This is the best he's been as Star-Lord. Well, yeah, since the second movie, because he wasn't that great in Infinity War with the whole dumbass thing of dooming the universe, which I like that he mentions that, and they kind of like, yeah, you really did kind of fuck up on that one. I like that they acknowledge in this movie at least that was really dumb of him to do that. Him being doing the heist stuff and him being smooth and trying to put the charm on Ratcatcher 2 from the Suicide Squad so he can get the information and all of that. Like, that was stuff. He reiterated why he's a good leader. Like, even though we saw him in Thor: Love and Thunder and he was, getting upstaged by Thor, they don't even really acknowledge Thor, which is interesting that I think about it. They don't even acknowledge the past with Thor. That shit's done. I guess they acknowledged it a little bit in the Christmas special, but anyway. And there's a lot of fake outs. No one dies. I forgot I didn't say this, but no one dies in this movie. But there's a lot of fake outs where you think certain characters are going to die. His was the craziest one because right at the end, he's out in space and he's like frozen. His head swells up like it's about to burst. But he got saved by fucking Adam Warlock and he was able to come back. And I'm like, where's his helmet? Now, granted, James Gunn, I just recently saw it on Twitter. He said the reason he didn't have his helmet is because he left it back on nowhere, which makes sense because after Rocket is injured, they're all rushing to get off the planet in the Bowie ship to go try to save him. So that's fine. That at least does make sense. That tracks within the story. Now, another thing that I guess people are trying to be upset about or fake mad about, I don't know. But I like Adam Warlock. Will Puder as Adam Warlock. I liked him. I thought he was fun. Apparently, there's a bunch of these people who claim to be Adam Warlock fans, never heard of him before this movie came out, but apparently they're upset because Adam Warlock, he's like a child. He's like a child in the man's body. He's a little aloof because he's new. He's just been created. The gold lady from the second movie, she's his mother in this. Essentially, she's his mother because she created him. In the comics, she's actually his sister, his younger sister, because he was created first. But in this, he views her more as like a mother figure. This is her son, who's supposed to be like the ultimate thing, but he's like kind of an idiot, and she's like, she's trying to work with him to make him do the right things. The scene where he's supposed to interrogate the guy and he burns him, just blows him away. That was a funny scene. And the whole bit with Nathan Fillion where he's like, I got a dumb guy on my team. He's like, yeah, I got one of those too. I know how it feels. Like, that was a funny bit. That was a funny fucking joke. That was a great run-on joke. But Warlock was cool. He's not in the movie that much. Initially, I wasn't expecting him to be in the movie as much, and he pretty much did what I thought he was going to do. He's trying to chase them down. They're working for the High Evolutionary, so he's essentially another henchman. But then once the High Evolutionary just fucks everybody on the planet, his mom is caught in an explosion, and he feels lost, and he's another stray who gets adopted by the Guardians. But I thought it was cool. Like, some people was like, well, Adam Warlock isn't this goofy. There are some old early stories where he is an asshole. He is a weird, emotional, sort of aloof character, so that's clearly what they're pulling from, and it's called character development. He'll be a little bit different in the next time we see him. I mean, even at the end of the movie, at the post-credit scene, he's a little different. He's much more reserved. I don't know, people don't like character development. It's not that bad, it's not that egregious, and it's Adam Warlock. You people don't fucking know who that character is. You only care about Adam Warlock because you saw a TikTok in 30 seconds that tried to explain what Adam Warlock is. You don't give a fuck. Stop it. Y'all fake mad over some dumb shit. Drax and Mantis, they are amazing. We saw this in the Christmas special. We see it in this. They are amazing. And Drax, David proceeds as Drax. He kills it. Palm is great as Mantis. I love her as Mantis. And their interactions, their back and forth, where she's calling him an idiot, but she's also dumb. She's just smart enough to be. She's like Mo. If Drax is curly, she's Mo, but she's just smart enough to be a little bit smarter than Drax's dumbass. But she's still dumb enough to fall for his tricks when they go do dumb shit with each other. But their back and forth is great. They're constantly fucking up, and like Nebula is like, I've had enough of you and your fuck ups. Had enough of Drax and his dumb shit. Like I said, there's a lot of pent up aggression between everybody, but they put it out there, but then they all start to apologize, and they realize that, okay, well, no, you have this is what you do, this is what we do, and we can all work together. And once again, thought Drax was going to die, but he didn't. He hung in there. I liked his action sequences. I wish we would have got more of him slashing people with his knives. He does pull out the knife towards the end in a pretty good moment. He stabs a guy, I think in the arm or the leg, and he's like hanging on the wall. That was pretty rough. Nebula is MVP, most improved. I fucking love Nebula. I did not care for her in the first movie, but the second movie, and of course, Endgame, this character has grown. She's gone through a lot, and I fucking love her. She is great. She is still the grouchy chick, and she's kind of like the second in command, or I guess third in command. I would say Rocket's second in command, but she's definitely stepped up in the hierarchy of the team, and she's got her new upgrades and all of that. Her moments where she's like, her body's getting all mangled, and she's like snapping back in place, still fighting. That shit never gets old. And like she cares, but she doesn't always show it in the best way. And her towards the end, where she's like, I'm gonna stick around, but I'm not gonna be like the leader of the team. She's gonna be like the mayor, basically, of nowhere, because the celestial skull Nowhere, which the Guardians turned into their home base, is now their like space station. Like it's a space station, basically. So she's gonna be the mayor, since they got a bunch of new people. They saved all the kids, all the animals, and we got the first F-bomb in the MCU. Funny scene where they're on the counter Earth, they're at this Bat family's house. They were kind of like Hispanic, at least that's what it felt to me. They were kind of like a Hispanic family, even though they were speaking a different language. There was something about it. They're gonna leave in the car, and it's like an old car from like the 70s or maybe the 80s, and it's got that fucked up like door handle on it. So everyone's in the car, and Nebula doesn't know how to open the door, and Peter's like giving her the instructions, like push the button, and then do this and that, and she's like, okay, press the button, and he's pressed the wrong button. He's like, no, you're pressing the keyhole. Press the other button under the handle. So she does it, and then she's like, okay, now what? And he's like, open the fucking door. Like, he just straight up is just like, open the fucking door. Then she gets in, and then they drive off. That was hilarious. That was a great moment. I was not expecting the F-bomb, but goddamn, that was funny. If we're gonna get an F-bomb, that was the perfect way of using it. And then we get the post-credit scenes. There's two of them. There's the one where we see the new team, because everyone's kind of separated at the end. Rocket's the new leader. We don't know how much time has passed. Was Drax there? I think Drax was there. Adam Warlock's there. He's in the blue and red suit. Then one of the little girls that they saved, she's there. And as soon as I saw her with the yellowish skin and the white hair, I was like, is she supposed to be Quasar? And she is. She's phyla-vell, aka Quasar, aka Captain Marvel. She's part of the Marvels, because they got the Marvels family. Although I don't know if they're gonna include her in that lineup, but she is one of the Marvels essentially like Captain Marvel. She can fly, super strong energy projection, but she can make like energy constructs to a degree. Usually she makes like swords and shields and shit like that. So that's gonna be cool to see her. Groot is now ginormous. Like baby Groot is big as shit now. He's like 20 feet tall, big as shit, and like it looks more like the comics. Like in the comics, Groot is ginormous. So that's kind of cool that that's the direction they're going in with that. Peter leaves and he goes back. He realizes he needs to reconnect with the family that he does still have out there in the universe. So he goes back to Earth to go see his grandfather. It's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen to this franchise after this, because James Gunn's leaving. He's going to DC Studios, and I gotta say, I wasn't excited about him directing Superman. I was fine with him writing. Was not excited about him directing Superman Legacy. After seeing this, I have no fears about him doing a Superman movie. I think he's gonna bring his fucking A game to it. And the future for DC Studios is looking pretty bright. Like if he can do this under the constraints of the House of Mouse, it's gonna be interesting to see what he's gonna be able to do when he can be freer to do his own stuff and then let other people do their own things in his own universe that he's, manipulating. It's gonna be fun to see, and I'm excited. This was once again another solid MCU film. We need more movies like this in the MCU, but some of the other ones felt to a degree, some of them felt half-assed. Even Multiverse of Madness felt sort of half-assed, because I think the story itself wasn't initially solid. At least with this one, there's a solid story. Then it's got a lot of flair and stuff added to it, and I think that's what the MCU really needs to get back to, because it's heroes in the costume, that's just not gonna fly anymore. They gotta bring a little something extra. Those are initially my thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more. I'm out. Peace.